Raw milk?
Yeah. So, welcome back, everyone. I'm turning this over to our Ag Chair, who is the lead chair for the next two measures.
Thank you. On SB888 relating to agriculture, permits the acquisition of raw milk and raw milk products if certain conditions are met. Requires farms and dairies that produce raw milk or raw milk products to register with the Department of Health. Permits farms and dairies to set up a location near an improved road to distribute their products. And I do have a testifier list. I think. Oh, boy. Sorry. No, it's going to be over here. Oh, I'm sorry. Gotcha. 588.
You're drinking too much raw milk.
Here we go. No. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Pardon me, folks. Steve Sakala, Hawaii Farmers Union, Kona, in support. If any of these names that I call are here, please let us know. William Jacinto, Maui Cattlemen's, in support. Ann Evans, in support. Carlton York, in support. Clario Prinzi, Courtney Turner, Dana Moss. All of these are in support. Denise Key, Eva Lee, Faye Pacheco, Faye Wallace, Felicia Cowden, Gayleen Barron, Harriet Witt, Jacqueline Ambrose, Jeff Lind, Dr. Joseph Cohn, Karen Murray, Lars Lind, Martha Lind, Nancy Redfeather, Pamela Newswald, Patrick Harley Simmons, and I have about 15 additional individuals in support and no one opposed to it. Is there anybody here either on... Did I get your testimony? Oh. You know, on this one, sir, I got your testimony on the other one, but not on this one somehow on 588.
Somehow,
but please come forward and tell me about... I apologize. You're not on my list here.
Afternoon, Senators.
All right, thank you.
Again, the Department of Agriculture has agreed to defer to Department of Health on all the issues of milk safety, as the Department of Health has sole jurisdiction over milk safety through Hawaii Administrative Rules, Chapter 15, and the Grade A Pasteurized Milk Ordinance, and through partnership agreements with the FDA, the National Conference on Interstate Milk Shippers. Passage of this bill would be detrimental to the health and safety of Hawaii's residents and visitors, as our testimony will attempt to convey, and it creates a duplication of efforts between DOA and DOH in the areas of milk safety. The department respectfully opposes this bill. According to the Centers of Disease Control, outbreaks linked to raw milk in the U.S. have more than quadrupled from an average of 3 outbreaks per year during 1993 to 2006 to 13 outbreaks per year between 2007 and 2012. A CDC study published in the Journal of Emerging Infectious Diseases found that most outbreaks were caused by Campylobacter and by non-pasteurized milk purchased from states in which non-pasteurized milk sales were legal. This increase was concurrent with a decline in the number of states in which the sale of non-pasteurization milk was illegal, from 28 in 2004 to 20 in 2011. And with an increase in the number of states allowing cow share programs, which rose from 5 states in 2004 to 10 in 2008. This study concludes that the legalization of the sale of non-pasteurized milk in additional states would probably lead to more outbreaks and illnesses, and recommends that public health officials should continue to educate legislatures and consumers about the dangers associated with consuming unpasteurized milk. For additional information, the department respectfully recommends the following resources, which I have distributed to the senators here. The document titles are all research articles from the Centers for Disease Control, and all of these can be also downloaded. I won't go through all of the descriptions of them, but basically the outbreaks associated with the non-pasteurized milk continue to pose a public health challenge. Legalization of the sale of non-pasteurized milk in additional states would probably lead to more outbreaks and illnesses, and this possibility is especially concerning for vulnerable populations who are most susceptible to the pathogen commonly found in non-pasteurized milk, which is our keiki, our kupuna, and persons with immune-compromised conditions. Before the invention and acceptance of pasteurization, raw milk was one of the most common sources of bacteria that cause salmonella, campylobacter, diphtheria, severe streptococcal infections, typhoid, and other foodborne illnesses. These illnesses killed many people each year, especially young children. In the 1900s, most mothers started to recognize this risk and would boil milk before giving it to their infants and young children to prevent them from dying and getting sick. Many studies have shown that pasteurization does not significantly change the nutritional value of milk. Pasteurized milk is rich in proteins, carbohydrates, and other nutrients. Heat slightly affects a few of the vitamins found in milk, thiamine, vitamin B12, and vitamin C, but milk is only a minor source of these vitamins in your diet. Mainstream scientific associations like the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the FDA, the CDC, all strongly recommend that states should not allow the distribution of raw, unpasteurized milk, as it is a danger to our community, and any distribution of sales of raw milk should remain illegal. There are no peer-reviewed documented studies that show any positive risk-benefit associated with consuming raw milk. The bill also contains no public health regulations that would ensure the safety of this raw milk. The most susceptible populations for food illnesses are our keiki, kupuna, and immunocompromised individuals, and exposing these populations to raw milk has no health benefits and places these populations at undue risk for contracting potentially fatal or debilitating diseases. Thank you for allowing me to testify.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who might want to stay? Because I'll have some questions for you. Yes, please. Thanks.
Chair, Scott Enright, Chairperson, the Hawaii Department of Agriculture. Yes, we defer to the Department of Health on both raw and pasteurized milk safety. But I needed to call attention to the appropriateness of placing this measure in Chapter 157. The intent of 157 is stability and fairness in the marketplace. So as we move forward, we could work with you, Chair, to find an appropriate place to put this measure.
Are you saying that this bill puts it in the wrong place?
That would be correct.
What place should it be, please?
We'll have to work with you on that.
You'll have to work on that. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to testify on this bill? If not, members, any questions? I have a couple questions for Department of Health, please. Yes. If you don't mind. I was trying to understand the sentence. You mentioned that the incidence of raw milk-related problems rose in conjunction with the decrease of the number of states where it was illegal.
Yes.
So that means the number of states where it was illegal has increased, and the number
of states there's a move towards more states allowing sales of unpasteurized milk. That's the way the trend is going, and that is causing an increase in foodborne outbreaks. Yes, so milk-borne outbreaks.
The increase. Is correlated with the increase in the number of states that are allowing it. Am I understanding that correctly? Okay. There was 13 problems per year in the last few years. Is that
13 outbreaks. Outbreak is defined as 2 or more clusters of people getting ill. So it's not 13 people getting ill.
I see. Thank you for clarifying. Why do you think there's a trend in legalizing raw milk among the states?
I might get in trouble for saying this, but I think too many people are reading the internet and believing things that are being said. There's a lot of things about dietary supplements and all these things that promote health issues, which are absolutely false. Mm-hmm. And it's sadly that I think a lot of people just believe what they read on the internet.
So you mentioned that raw milk has no benefits in terms of vitamins and minerals.
No, I didn't say no benefit.
I'm sorry.
There's no health benefit risk. So which means drinking raw milk is much more dangerous for you to contracting debilitating illnesses or dying versus any nutritional value that you would gain from drinking raw milk.
When you consider nutritional value, do you think of things such as enzymes and living components of the milk that are harmed by pasteurization?
I would be looking at vitamin content, yes. Okay. We haven't looked at that.
Are you aware that there's a large trend in the sort of alternative health or holistic health community towards raw milk and raw milk products?
Yes, there's a lot of trends towards what we think are shaky health claims, yes.
I understand. So you don't agree with these trends?
No, I do not agree.
Although a lot of states are legalizing them and a lot of people are perceiving benefits from it.
Correct.
All right. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Like this guy.
Okay. And then we have one more bill on the same subject, which does have opposition. The difference, by the way, folks, the next bill is SB381, which is also on the subject of raw milk, and this one's what is called herd share, which is also a trend nationwide, where someone buys into the ownership of a cow, and then they're not exactly buying the milk, they're receiving milk that they own. For this bill, we have testimony in opposition from Keith Kawamoto, Department of Health. And I don't know, do you want to have the same comments?
Yeah, it's exactly
exact same comments. Opposition from Ellen Gottlieb, Hawaii Cattlemen's Association. Douglas Vincent opposed, Joni Camilla opposed, Nancy Redfeather support, and Rosemarie Patronette support. Is there anyone else wishing to comment on that measure?
Could I just make one comment on
Yes,
the
please. Please do. Thank you.
I've also been a milk regulator for a long time prior to becoming the program manager. So I was the milk ratings officer for the state of Hawaii. So what that entails is actually doing evaluations of milk sheds and milk operations, making sure that everybody's doing the same thing the right way. So one of the biggest, trends to avoid states where it's illegal to sell raw milk was to do this cow share thing. So it's a way to get around quote-unquote distributing milk by saying everybody in my community owns this cow so we can all drink it freely. So that's why cow shares evolved. It's a way to get around the illegal milk sales.
Thank you. I am aware of that. And, sir, while you're here, one more question for you. This relates to both these bills.
Yes.
When we consider raw milk versus raw milk, products made from raw milk,
right,
such as butter, yogurt, cheese,
yes,
do you feel that are they equally dangerous?
Yes,
all those
they're
products?
equally dangerous.
Yogurt.
There is raw milk cheese that is allowed and safe, but it has to go through a very extensive aging process. So there is such thing as raw milk cheese that the FDA recognizes as absolutely safe, but it has to go through a very long process of almost like fermentation and aging to render it safe. But typically all raw milk products, cheeses, cause a lot of foodborne illnesses throughout the United States also.
Is raw milk cheese allowed for sale in Hawaii?
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to take a brief recess.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for your patience. For these bills, Chair's recommendation is going to be to pass SB588 with the amendment that the Department of Health will promulgate rules to regulate the sale and distribution of raw milk and raw milk products. So the recommendation is to pass SB588 with amendments. Vice Chair for the vote.
SB 588 with amendments. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Chan Oakland.
I vote with reservations for discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Senator Taniguchi is excused. Senator Thielen.
I'm with Senator Chan Oakland on that. Reservations.
Okay. Senator Wakai.
Yes.
And Senator Sloan excused. Measure passes, Chair.
Health is,
Thank you, Chair.
Health the same recommendation. Chair votes aye.
Vice Chair votes yes. Senator Baker, excuse. Senator Gabbard.
Aye.
Senator Revere.
Aye.
Senator Weiderman.
Aye.
Senator Sloan, excuse. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, Chair. And for SB 381, I bow to the overwhelming opposition to the herd sharing bill and will be deferring that bill. And we could recess briefly and can.
Yeah, and then we have one more bill to take up. Thank you, everyone. joint between health, energy, and education relating to the health impacts of pesticides. We know you've all been very patient today and heard a great deal of testimony. This bill is focused specifically on the restricted pesticide use around the schools, and that's why we had this joint. We'll start with anyone who would like to come up and add testimony, but we know we've heard from many people on these measures. Amelia Mauricio from DOH, providing, yes, okay, yes.
Good evening, Dr. Green. Hi. Chair Gabbard, members of the committee. My name is Keith Kawaoka. I'm the Deputy Director for Environmental Health. With all the things said, and we submitted separate testimony on each of these bills. So my comments are basically addressing all of the bills in one. But with all the things said so far, I just want to make something overall from the department standpoint. The department, and in particular the Environmental Health Administration, environmental protection programs are committed to protecting the health of the state's communities and the environment. We do this mission every day, and we perform this work realizing that we must work together, not only just internally as a team, but also with the outside, sort of like with the Department of Agriculture, federal agencies, community as well. And we do this, basically this important work with competing demands, limited resources, and often with incomplete information to make decisions on often a critical basis. So given that, and this is my 9+ day on the job right now, we just want to state certain things that apply to all of the bills and relate to the pesticide issue. The department in particular last 2 years, despite limited resources, like I said, and other pressing commitments, have conducted several efforts in this regard. These include reviewing the atrazine occurrence in Hawaii, conducted pesticide stream sampling across the state, and coordinated a cancer cluster evaluation for Kauai. We're also building within the state laboratory capability, additional lab capacity to include additional laboratory sampling, environmental sampling. I just want to stress that we have conducted these efforts in coordination with and in collaboration with many agencies and organizations, including Department of Agriculture, federal agency, counties, and the public. We support community efforts such as the Community Agriculture Good Neighbor Program, which is a voluntary pesticide use disclosure and reporting program. For the proper determination of buffer zones, we believe that they must be pesticide specific and data driven. By federal law, and many people said, EPA Office of Pesticide Programs is the responsible agency for evaluating human health and environmental risks and ensuring proper pesticide safety practices are employed. Proper pesticide air monitoring should be employed in order to evaluate off-site migration of pesticides. The department does not have current funding or the necessary equipment to conduct such monitoring right now. Coupled with the current situation, as you know, with the Environmental Response Revolving Fund, it's uncertain what the future is for all of environmental protection programs at this point in time. Our capability and expertise in analyzing and interpreting scientific environmental data is extensive in determining the potential movement of pesticides as well as other contaminants. DOH uses this capability to determine whether regulatory exceedances exist and applying appropriate corrective action is necessary. DOH has and continues to provide scientific and technical support to the Department of Agriculture in order to identify data gaps in pesticides off-target movement and aids the Department of Agriculture in their regulatory enforcement. As you probably know, Department of Health currently regulates pesticides in several different areas in environmental health programs. These include water, food crops, former pesticides mixing, site cleanups, pesticide disposal, even emergency response, to name a few. For example, in emergency response incidents involving suspected pesticides, both DOH and Department of Agriculture follow the incident command system, in which Department of Agriculture is the incident command, and we, as well as other emergency responders, provide necessary support as necessary. In conclusion, Department of Health does not regulate the use or application of pesticides, nor do we have pest management expertise regarding regulatory decisions regarding crop protection. Department of Health does not have staff capability to determine notice and disclosure requirements or implement pesticide buffer zones. We feel that establishing of these programs within the department would be duplicative and foster confusion for pesticide applicators as well as the agricultural community as a whole. The department believes that these functions are more efficiently implemented by the Department of Agriculture Pesticides Branch, which currently regulates pesticides and has the expert staff to provide necessary pesticide program oversight. In summary, the department has and is prepared to provide scientific and technical support to assist the Department of Agriculture in identifying data gaps in determining if off-target pesticides movement warrants additional state regulatory actions in order to protect communities from drift. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. And when you say staff, you mean the one staff member that they have, right?
Right.
Okay. Kaylina Bessung, Department of Education. With comments, Department of Ag.
Chair, as a Department of Ag will stand on our written testimony with strong reservations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Gary Hoosier. Just give us some highlights. Is that right, Gary?
Yeah, I understand. We've all been here a long time, and I appreciate the committee and the patience. It is very frustrating coming from a community that's been battling this for 2 years, and we have good people in the Department of Health, good people in the Department of Ag, who have no resources, no ability to protect the public, and that is the truth. It is a public record that it takes the Department of Ag a year or two to inspect when they have evidence of drift. You talked earlier about when they find drift, what do? They swab it, they send it away, and it takes a year or two. That's public record. It's public record in the documents I sent you, the source documents, that they have years of backlog in closing out cases that they're investigating. Years. And we keep here every year, well, we're going to add somebody to the budget, we're going to add a position. It just does not happen. Okay, years of backlog. The EPA never comes around. It is just, it's beyond comprehension, the lack of protection the state is providing. And it's not because there's bad people. It's just the way the system works. You have an opportunity to protect the people of our state at no cost to the state. The burden should be on the companies that use these chemicals. The companies pay for the disclosure. The companies do their buffer zones. Right now, if you're in a school or you're in a house or a hospital and they're spraying over here, they know what they're spraying. They're employed, the companies know what they're spraying, the employees know what they're spraying, the Department of Ag knows what they're spraying, but the public doesn't know what they're spraying. So it gets, what are they afraid of letting the public know what's being used? Everybody else knows except the people in the school, the people in the hospital, the people in the houses. It is just beyond me, and I'm sorry I get excited about this, but I hear it every year. We're going to add a position, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and they don't want to tell us what chemicals they're using when everybody knows except the people in our community. Buffer zones and disclosure go hand in hand. Buffer zones are not a taking according to the United States Supreme Court. They're buffer zones in other places, in other communities, and they've been ruled not a taking. If it's a complete taking, it's one thing, but they are not a complete taking. In County of Kauai, we've consulted many attorneys on this issue. I encourage you to do the same thing. The termite companies, just real quickly, people say, what about termites? What about termites? I've studied this extensively. The chemicals used in termite fumigation do not leave residue. That's why people can go in and live in their house when the tent is away. It does not leave residue. The termite companies test the air in the house before they let people come in. And the disclosure is a big tent with big signs all around it. Everybody knows. So that is a red herring in my opinion. How do you do fact-finding, the Kauai fact-finding effort? How do you do fact-finding? How do you do a study without disclosure? It is, the industry will say, well, do the studies first, prove it. How do you prove anything without disclosure? And I just beg you, think about this. Think about protecting our community with buffer zones and disclosure. I think the community deserves it. The state deserves it. And I applaud you for having this issue on the table. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Warren Watanabe was in opposition. Catherine Betts in support. Bennett Miskaluk, my apologies, Hawaii Crop Improvement Association was in opposition. Lynn Wilson was in support. Nancy Redfeather was in support. Tim Lyons.
Same testimony, same request for clarifying language.
Thank you, Tim. Winnett He in support. Miles Greenberg in support. Wailua Brandman in support. There's not, don't get nervous, is way less testimony than before. Monica Campo with comments. Carol Hart, comments. Susan Kinsey in support. Lemomi Dirks in support. Karen Murray in support. Misuko Hayakawa in support. Lynn Wilson again in support. Felicia Cowden and Shannon Rudolph and Ian York in support. Pat Geegan in support. John Gordines in opposition. Joanna Wheelers in support. Corinne Chang in support. Maui County Council member Ellie Cochran in support. Alicia Malafiti?
Opposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Deep Rock in opposition. Elif Bial in support. Farmers and Ranchers United. Opposition. Adolph Helm in opposition. Alan Takamoto. See, yours. Opposition. Paul Oshiro in opposition from Alexander and Baldwin. Alan Gottlieb. Council, Hawaii Cattlemen's Council in opposition. Deborah Zeisman, Good Beginnings Alliance in support. Liddy Morgan Bernal from the Hawaii Farm to School and School Garden Hui in support. Iris Iwami in opposition. Cindy Goldstein, DuPont Pioneer opposition. Mark Phillipson from Syngenta in opposition. Late testimony was from the Chamber, was in opposition. Chris Manfredi.
Good evening. My name is Janet Ashman, and Chris had to leave to take the last flight back to the Big Island. Sorry. I'm speaking on behalf of the Farm Bureau tonight and representing almost 2,000 members statewide. I hope you have our testimony, but so I'll make it briefer. But I'd like to be able to say a few things, and thank you so much for waiting. We can't support this bill because its requirements are arbitrary and it unfairly targets farmers. This bill would allow a school itself to apply a pesticide on school grounds while preventing a neighboring farmer from using the exact same pesticide or even a less toxic one if the farmer is subject to this inequitable law. It would not prevent the recent incidents at schools where children and faculty smelled odors emanating not from farms but from residential neighbors or the school itself. We can all readily understand and support the need to use pesticides to protect our homes and businesses from termites, to keep our drinking water safe, and prevent disease outbreaks such as West Nile or malaria. We don't object to the use of pesticides to prevent frightening infestations of little fire ant or destruction of our precious watersheds by Myconia, yet agricultural producers are unfairly made a priority of this legislation. It's a fact of life in Hawaii that insects and diseases thrive in our climate, and because there are no freezing temperatures, they exist year-round. Insects, weeds, and diseases are imported by ships and aircraft, and our islands lack predators to control them. The proposed new requirements unreasonably triggered by a farmer's use of a restricted use pesticide. Contrary to the perception that RUPs subject the public to greater risk, the use of an RUP may actually decrease the likelihood of exposure, since it requires the user to be educated and licensed to ensure proper and safe applications. Furthermore, a farmer's use of particular types of pesticides is not a static process. What many non-farmers fail to realize is that at any given time a farmer may, depending on the abundance of various insects, competing weeds, and virulent diseases, be forced to use a pesticide, at times an RUP, or lose his entire crop and income. A farmer may need, even a small farmer, a farmer may need to use an RUP if a general use pesticide is not effective in controlling a particular pest or disease. Or he may use no RUPs, but a significant amount of general use pesticides like those that homeowners, landscapers, and golf courses use if they're effective and available. It makes no sense to impose differing requirements upon users of the same pesticides based upon their RUP purchases. This bill is apparently meant to target Hawaii's successful seed and other large farmers, but it could also sweep into the net our small farmers who could not take any part of their small acreage out of production to comply with an arbitrary buffer zone requirement and still remain in business. And I wanted to add that the reason I think that maybe we're forgetting why there is so much RUP volume sold or used by Big Ag is because Big Ag is big. They have a lot of acres, in some cases hundreds of acres. thousands, tens of thousands of acres. And I think you have to look at that before you say, wow, they're using a lot. They're using a lot on a lot of acreage. Ironically, this bill and the others unfairly target farmers while the state and local government agencies who apply significant quantities of pesticides along roadsides, at public buildings and grounds, including schools and parks, and other areas accessible to the general public, would not be subject to the requirements of the proposed legislation if they happen not to purchase RUPs above the as yet unspecified quantity. But farmers who apply the very same pesticides on private agricultural land would be subject to overwhelming costs and burdensome new regulations simply because a small fraction of their pesticide use happens to be RUPs. We respectfully urge you to hold this bill, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Chris Caulfield, support. Dylan Hoosier was in support. Thank you. Elaine Nakayama, in opposition. Kathleen Horgan, in support. Leona Thompson, in support. Mary Lax, in support. Sherry Pollock was in support, and a woman named Tulsi was in support. Is there anyone else that was here to testify on this measure?
We support. Please stand boundary.
Okay, members, any questions? Now let's take a brief recess. Chairs have conferred. The language in Senate Bill 800 is contained in the omnibus bill, so we'll defer this measure, but we appreciate everyone sticking with us and coming to testify and to share their manao on this measure. Okay, thank you, members. We do believe there's one more ag bill, but everyone else will give them a couple minutes to disperse.